Hey everybody, my name is Joe. I'm a doctoral student studying clinical psychology, and this is Psych Made Simple. Today we're continuing our series on the Enneagram. I'm going to cover Enneagram Type 3, and just as a quick refresher from our previous videos, we've been kind of covering the Enneagram from the angle of it revealing a trap that keeps us from living fully and freely as our true self. And one way to think of that is that it's kind of this core fear that we often move away from because we want to avoid our fears, right? But instead of avoiding our fears specifically and moving away from our fears, a lot of times it's better to move toward what we value. And a lot of times that's not really exactly the same direction as, moving away from our fears. And we've also been using Rene Girard's idea of two different types of desire to kind of talk about the different Enneagram types. So a quick refresher on that is that physical desires are what you enjoy for its own sake, like driving a car if you'd like to drive it really fast. And that's why you might buy a fancy car, right, for the thrill of driving fast. But metaphysical desire is what you would enjoy because of who it makes you, so buying a fancy car, a Ferrari or something like that, because of the status that it would bring you to have that car. And when we come to Enneagram Type 3, similar to what we talked about with Type 2, I think those metaphysical desires are much more present, and maybe not as much as Type 2 of having like a out of touch or having a lack of those physical desires or awareness of the physical desires, but I would say there's still a real emphasis on the metaphysical desires. And I would say that Type 3 really have a desire to be liked and to be admired. And a lot of times they're called like a chameleon or an achiever. And the first two statements from this book about the Enneagram, The Road Back to You, really emphasize that chameleon kind of side of things. So I can find a way to win over and connect with just about anyone. And that's kind of maybe the positive side of the chameleon, but the negative side would be sometimes I feel like a phony. And on the achiever side, I love setting and accomplishing measurable goals. A lot of times these are people that are really good at school, good at work, accomplish. But, people say, I don't know how or when to stop working. Maybe it's hard to shut off that drive to be an achiever. And I think a lot of that is rooted in this fear of shame. So if we look over at this picture of the Enneagram, it kind of emphasizes the core emotions that I think drive a lot of the actions of people of each of the different types. And I would say that for Type 3, that shame is really present, just like it was for what we talked about with the 2. I also put a quote in here from the Apostle Paul, who I think may have been an Enneagram 3. I'd have to look into it more and think about it, but he says, I have become all things to all people so that by all possible means I might save some. So it's that idea of being a chameleon, right, of kind of shifting who you are just to be relatable to different people. And there's a positive element to that, right, that you can connect with people, but there's also a negative element that sometimes you almost, similar to with the 2 of being out of touch with your physical desires, you might be out of touch with really who you are and what you value about your identity. And you might be more driven by wanting to be admired and liked by other people and avoiding that shame rather than living out, what is important to you. So coming back to this, graphic, that fear for the Enneagram 3 is that shame of not being liked or not being admired. And again, there's nothing wrong with, being an achiever, and there's nothing, just like with all the Enneagram types, there are strengths with being a chameleon and being an achiever. But trying to use those strengths to move toward what's important to you rather than strictly just moving away from feeling that shame that might be a fear that's driving a lot of our behaviors. So let me know if you found that interesting. If you're an Enneagram 3, let me know in the comments if that resonated or if you think I'm totally wrong and off base. And feel free to leave any other video suggestions or anything like that in the comments, and I'd love to connect with you. So thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.